Route 85 on that Vasona extension, where will that come in?
It's at the, well, it's at the Netflix office, Winchester and 85. So the station will be right there in front of the Netflix building. Yes, right there. Don't ask another good question. I'm gonna kick you out.
So these are extensions. I noticed, well, I guess BRT is definitely in the running. Like it's the decision has been made for BRT on Santa Carlos and Santa Clara Street. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have a kind of a BRT master plan that has 3 corridors. There's Santa Clara and Rock, which includes Capitol Expressway, and then there's Stevens Creek, and then El Camino.
Just going off of that, will those corridors be designed for potential upgrades to light rail? Because I'm no transit planner or anything, but it seems like those corridors, they seem like they're perfect for light rail because, as you showed us in the beginning, you have a very high potential ridership right there. It was those dark green areas and dark yellow areas. And nothing against bus rapid transit, but you can couple the light rail cars together to have greater capacity. And it seems like those would be perfect corridors for light rail if the area densifies even more. So is the bus rapid transit, where it has dedicated running, is it going to be designed so you can upgrade the light rail in the future if demand warrants it?
So you're not a transit planner. I mean, it's a great question again. And I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, our BRT, our whole approach to BRT is we're designing facilities that are convertible at a future time into light rail. So on Alum Rock Avenue, for example, we're going to have a median running busway. There'll be platforms. Those platforms will look and feel just like light rail platforms because they are light rail platforms. They just won't have track. They won't have wires. There's a physical limitation on Santa Clara Street. So for that corridor, that sort of hampers us in that regard, and that is the block lengths on Santa Clara Street coming out of downtown really only allow for 1 rail car. So you could never really do 2, and certainly not 3 rail cars without some significant redesign of the street network in that part of San Jose. So that's frankly a big limitation that makes the BRT perform better in terms of capacity in that corridor. But El Camino doesn't have that. Stevens Creek doesn't have that. And yes, our design approach is sort of allowing us to sort of look at these corridors as an evolution. So we can introduce BRT, build ridership as the land uses catch up. And the demand overwhelms a bus system. We could convert to rail. So that's the long-term plan. Yes?
I have one question. Given that VTA's funding priorities on Measure A are leaning towards BART, how's the agency proposed to pay for many of these extensions? I understand that the extensions to both East Ridge and Vasona are part of it, but the extension to San Jose State as proposed, how would that be funded?
I don't have an answer for that. I mean, basically, there's funding is available. There's always regional funding, state funding, federal funding. VTA has to be competitive. We have to compete against other properties for that funding. We're not going to be able to compete unless we have good planning work. And that's what we're trying to do here, is establish some good planning work that really gets us in that ballgame. I mean, we can't really even compete unless we have a plan to go after. So we're certainly not going to limit what we're doing from the planning side because we may not get the funding. What we have to do is really be prepared to go out there and get the funding. And you have to do efforts like this. So that's kind of the base answer. Other questions? We're going to move on a little bit. This is just a summary of kind of everything you see. And this is really, I mean, that first column is really the cheapest version of Vasona Loop and South Express. That's $20 million. You add the short T, which is the cheapest of the 2 different Tasman arrangements. That's 13. Extensions together are about $528 million. And then the total cost you can see there is just over $500 million. So that's sort of, kind of the low-cost version of improving your light rail system.
It would be interesting in those, comparing those, I mean, it's kind of grabs right away that, these tweaks to the system are like 5% of the cost of these extensions. And it would be interesting to see each of those projects compared, and you kind of showed earlier the graph that sort of suggests that the extensions aren't very competitive in terms of your standard. But if you also scored each of these in terms of how many dollars per incremental rider each one of them brought out, which would probably give you a similar message. And probably those tweaks probably stack up pretty darn well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you'll see something akin to that as we complete this study. And we sort of, what we'll be sort of bringing to our board is a recommendation as to sort of an investment plan for the light rail system. And yeah, ridership is sort of how we evaluate sort of our currency and how we evaluate these improvements to our system. I mean, what are you getting for the money? What you should be getting for is making the system more attractive for people to ride and bodies on the system. So, just in terms of concluding, like I just was talking about, we can also look at things in terms of phases, and this is the whole idea about just picking out 2035 and saying what we're going to do there is not really the right way to look at it. It's about what can we do by 2015, what do we have to do by 2018 or so, when BART opens. And the system can be improved in phases. And one example on the south line there is that in phase 1 we can do the signals. In the pocket track, that gets us 55 miles per hour. As we grow and the vehicles get replaced, we can get up to 65 miles per hour. So the system can always be improved. And I think that's one thing that we've tried to accomplish with the work here is that if anyone was under the impression that you built the light rail system and then you just sort of wash your hands and walk away, you never had to put money into it, you're not right. I mean, everybody has to constantly be reinvesting into their rail system. New York City does it, Boston does it, everybody's always doing it. And we're no different. We're 20 years old, it's time for us to start looking at it. So that's kind of the idea here. We'll see some cost-benefit analysis. We'll have that really ready by January. And you can kind of check back with us and download the presentation in January, and at the same place you're going to see this. And then we're scheduled to go to our board in February.
Is 65 about the most speed that it makes sense on that line because of the station spacing?
Yes, and also because of its condition, it's in the sort of median on the freeway there. We would not operate at 65 on North First Street.
Well, yeah.
But we could get up to 45 on North First if we had fencing and better design there. So we could get faster in lots of parts of the system.
I mean, so in other words, there's no point in taking the 85 segment up to 79 miles an hour, which you can do with just ABS
Right.
legally.
Right.
But there's no benefit to that extra 14 miles an hour because the station spacing is so close.
Right. And you're also kind of, you have to integrate with the rest of the system.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, you could have theoretically not, I guess. So I want to get some questions. Just real quick. So the presentation is on our VTA website there. You can follow